Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of Movies That Move We. Hope you guys had a great week. I hope your team won the Super Bowl. If not, I hope you at least enjoyed the commercials. Yeah, just me. Anyway, welcome back. Today we're discussing a classic, Carmen Jones, adapted by Oscar Hammerstein in 1954. Is an adaptation of the play Carmen, or the opera Carmen, which was adapted from the novella called Carmen. So let's dig into the history a little bit. The story itself was written by Prosper de Mérimée, and it's 147 years old, give or take. And basically, it's about the difference in class, economics, racism, sexism. It's about all of that, which in our modern day, we don't really think those things had the same impact as it does now, which it really didn't. It was a different level, but we don't think of it in the same terms of then versus now. So the basic story is this. Carmen, in the original and also in the opera, was a gypsy. Now, we all know gypsy is a derogatory term that referred to the Romani people way back then. But as far as the story goes, that's what it was about. Carmen is exotic, she's free-spirited, and she wants better in life, is kind of the underlying tale. In order for her to elevate herself in Carmen and both the book and the opera, she would have to get in association with a white member of French society. As far as the white members, the wealthy members of French society were concerned, anyone who wasn't white was an outsider. So that was Romani, that was Jews, that was anybody, like I said, who was not white. Carmen was bold enough to meet a soldier. These stories take place during times of war and unrest. She met a soldier, she fell in love, and when it didn't look like things were going to work out in her favor, she moved on quickly, which ultimately led to her death. Now, this story was revolutionary in its time when it was written in 1847 and when it was also turned into an opera by George Bizet in 1875. He created the opera, was bold enough to put it on stage, and people criticized him and was like, this is no. Nobody's going to come to see this. Wealthy white people don't want to come and see a story about a Romani girl or anybody who's from outside of their economic status. They're high-class people. They want to come and see a high-class performance that represents them. Bizet said, no, y'all gonna get this. This is the play you're gonna get. And he gave it to him. He lived long enough to see the first performance and died shortly thereafter. He didn't have an opportunity to see it become a national success, much less the worldwide success that it's become today. This play has been put on multiple times, multiple adaptations, as well as film. So you know about this version with Dorothy Dandridge and Harry Belafonte and Pearl Bailey and just a number of other well-noted names of the time, as well as also, dare I mention it? Yes, I dare. Carmen Brown, the hip opera. We'll touch on that much later. Anyhow, the basic story, as I said, is it follows Oscar Hammerstein's version, follows Bizet's version. It just brings it up to World War II. And so we meet Carmen and we meet Joe, the two main characters. They're at a base in North Carolina where the story takes place and where Carmen is from originally. Again, she's exotic, she's beautiful, she's free-spirited, but she's other. She's not wealthy enough under normal circumstances to attract somebody like Joe. Now, Joe's a typical man. He sees pretty, he likes pretty, he flirts with pretty, but he has a sweetheart, Cindy Lou, who's coming to meet him at base, and she is of his same social status, middle class black. So she shows up and says, well, look, who's that heifer? She's more polite than that. She's like, who's that heifer? And he's like, oh, she's nobody. She's always around here. And he proposes to her and says, I'll get a day pass and let's go get married. So he's ready to go do that. And then little Miss Carmen gets in a fight with someone who's jealous of her, pretty much. And he is now held responsible for taking her to jail on the day that he's supposed to be getting married. That's Carmen, starting trouble. Well, that was just the beginning of troubles. Joe was mad that he had to go drop this chick off. It was miles into town. He took the wrong road, and she took advantage of it and ran away, putting Joe's entire military career at risk. Things resolved themselves. He was able to get back to barracks, was about to get another day pass. And yeah, here comes Carmen again. Starting trouble. He gets back and sees her, after flirting with him heavily, flirting with the boxer, local boxer who's gonna make it big. The boxer invites Carmen and her friends to see him fight in Chicago. First, Carmen's like, no, I'm not interested in him. He's not pretty enough, basically. Until he says, hey, I'll pay your way. You'll want for nothing. And she's like, wait a minute, there's Joe who wants to be a pilot and wants to go all the way across the country for pilot school. And then there's this guy who's heading to Chicago where I really want to be. She persuades Joe to give up his dream of being a pilot to pursue her dream of living and elevating herself in Chicago. And that's when stuff really hit the fan. I'll let you watch the movie if you haven't seen it before to see how it ends for Carmen, because it ends, spoiler alert, she dies. But how she dies is interesting, and this was one of the controversial things in Bizet's play, because for the first time people saw dramatic death on the stage. And even in the film, Hammerstein managed to keep that factor, even though it's in the modern day, it wasn't so uncommon anymore to see people die on film. But I think overall, this is a great classic because it puts the whole story in a very specific time that people of that time could relate to. They were like, oh yeah, World War II, this hit home for them. It hit home for Black people because, hey, this was an all-Black cast. And it also showed the segregated military. So there are a number of things in this film that just stand out and make it classic for what it was like during that time. When you start talking about the sexism or how it deals with sexuality, the only way for Carmen to move up from parachute maker, which is her occupation in the film, to modern day housewife was to marry a man who was already established. It was difficult for her to move up in society without a man's money, much like Carmen in the original story. So anyway, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I think it's a great film, a great classic film, great historical references. And if you decide to go down the rabbit hole and dig more into what Carmen was about, I encourage you to do so. Hop online and look it all up. Fantastic details on this. So until next time, have a great week. Watch a good movie, and we'll see you next time.